Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be fitting seat rails into the Volvo S40. Now I've got two different types of seat rails on this bench here. So we've got this type here, which is fairly common to see on eBay and stuff like that. I always thought these were competition legal, but apparently they are not. Now this one has been donated to me from Paul Crowder, thank you very much. I will be using this in the passenger side, but regulations have changed fairly recently, and this set that I have here is actually FIA legal. Now you can see there's quite a big difference between the two. This has got a much smaller diameter tube, and this is considerably larger. Now they both weld in either side, but this one here has got a separate plate on there. Now these can be made out of square tubing or circular like I have here. I prefer the look of these, and it also means that you can get this welded in the car and then set these to level off instead of relying on the top being absolutely plumb when you first do it. Now fitting seat rails are normally fairly simple, but on this car it is slightly awkward, and I'll show you that now. So as we look in the passenger side, you can see where the seat rails used to be, and yeah, there's no reason why. You get this tube here, obviously cut it to length, and it will go in there, and another one there. Nice flat section there for us to weld that to. And if we come over to the driver's side here, you can see you've got this part of the transmission tunnel and this part here, and it's not very flat. I'm not entirely sure why this car has this section here. This chassis was originally designed for an Evo, so I've got a feeling that this does make some sort of allowance for getting the prop shaft in, but obviously I don't need that, so I'm going to be cutting a section out of the floor here. And the reason why I want to do that is because if you see where the steering wheel is, if I put the rails in here, the seat is going to be offset to one side, and I want the seat more in the center where it needs to be. First things first, I'm going to mark this up, drill a hole in each corner, lift up the car, make sure that I'm not going to interfere with anything that is underneath the car, and then I'm going to cut that out, and then I've got to find some metal to fill in the gaps, I suppose. So yeah, I'm going to get straight onto that now. Right, so it seems a fairly nice distance away from the steering wheel, although the steering wheel is really far on the left hand side, so I definitely need to get my seat over this way. But as that sits there, yeah, the distance from the steering wheel is pretty good, but it does show that I don't need quite as much cutting out of the tunnel at the front here as I originally thought, so that's pretty good news. Oh, and if you hadn't already noticed, I did fit this steering wheel recently. This is different to the one that was in the car before, and I've also got a new snap-off wheel boss. This is from Driftworks, this is their own one. It's very, very solid. The one that I had on there had quite a lot of movement in it. The previous one was really light and a bit flimsy. When this goes on, yeah, you can feel that it's a good quality unit. Cost wise, I think it was around 70 or 80 pounds. So not too expensive, but I think it's probably twice as expensive as one that I had on there previously, which was just cheap and nasty. You certainly don't want your steering wheel falling off whilst you're racing around. Right, let's get out there. Right, so I've actually just jumped over to the passenger side of things because cutting that hole is going to make a load of noise, and it's almost 11 o'clock already. Plan is to get them as far back pretty much as possible. You can see where the original rails were. They're going to come back here and here, so going to get them marked up and then cut the rails down, put the sides in, and get the welder out, tack it into place, I suppose. So these marks here and here, that is where my seat rail was sat on the bottom of the seat, and I actually want the rails to be 50mm in from that either side because of these brackets, makes that offset. So using the sill as my edge to square off from, I've gone 50mm back from that mark there. You can just see it beyond, and made a mark there and a corresponding mark at the end, and then I've basically done the same here. So there's a mark there and a mark just there. That's where I want my rails to be. So if I move this out of the way, I can line my tube up there and there. Yeah, that's basically where it's going to go, but I've obviously got to cut it to length and make sure I get the angle correct on either side. To work out the angle, I'm going to be using this digital level, and what I can do is I can plonk this on here, tap that button, zeroes it off, and then when I bring this down to here, it will give me an angle 65 degrees, and basically I can set that angle in the bandsaw and get that cut to the correct angle. First rail is cut to length, and I've put that as low as that will go. All I've got to do is measure up and cut the next one. Both rails are cut to length and are ready to go. So I've cleaned away all of the seam seal here and here, because that is terrible stuff to weld anywhere near. All I've got to do is get the flat wheel around these areas here, clean up all the paint on them, and they are ready to get welded in. Right, so this rail is tacked in place, and I've tacked in these two brackets, and I used the side mounts to make sure they were level with the other rail. But I really should not be doing this late at night, because obvious issue here. Yeah, that's supposed to go over here, and obviously they are stuck in the middle. I mean, honestly, what a bloody idiot. I have actually decided that instead of TIG welding these, I'm just going to MIG weld them. Going to save some time. Right, I just got to undo what I've done here. Fast forward on a little bit, and I have fully welded these brackets at the front here, and these plates here, I've started to weld these in, but I've not welded the tubes to the car yet, or to these plates, so I can actually rotate this round a little bit. And the reason why I've done that is these brackets are bolted tight against here, and I've got a square, and I've squared these off here and here, so these brackets are exactly 90 degrees to this rail here, which has been squared off to the car here. And then I have put these brackets in here, bolted there and there, so now I know that these brackets are square to this and here. It means I can tack these into position. This has been leveled off to the car there or thereabouts. I've been moving it around a little bit, and that means I can get these welded front and rear here as well. So that is pretty much how progress is going. I'll probably just throw a few tacks on there for tonight and fully weld it tomorrow. Right, so it's the next day. I've come straight home from work and I've cut this hole because obviously that's made quite a bit of a noise, and I don't want to be doing that too late at night. I've roughed out that hole. Now all I've got to do is bend a piece of metal to fit in there, and then I can kind of mock up where I want my seat rails on the driver's side. So there we go. That's the hole filled with a bit of cardboard. So now that I've got this template, I can lay this out on a flat piece of metal, cut it out, put it in the folder, bend this here, cut them out, weld it all together, and it should fit in the hole. And there we go. That is not looking too bad at all. This cut along here is very, very close to where it needs to be. Maybe a little bit needs to be ground out of here. This one is a bit long, so I'll probably need to take 3 or 4 mil off the end of that to make that line up nicely. And these ends, once I've got this in properly, I'll make those fit a little bit better. And then I've got to clean it all properly. So I've obviously got to take the paint off here. I'll probably use the grinder, a wire wheel or something like that, get that all cleaned off. But this is galvanized. I don't know if you can see that finish, and that is not very nice to weld. Not very nice to weld because it doesn't weld very nicely, and secondly because when you weld it, the zinc coating on here gives us some very toxic fumes. I have cleaned up this plate. You can see it's been ground all the way around the outside, and I've done that on both sides, and I've ground round the opening, so I've got all the paint off from the shell, and I've started tacking it in, and I've just done a little bit of a weld along the bottom there, and it has very quickly reminded me why I don't like MIG welding onto car bodies. Basically, welding it is terrible. You can see I've blown through there, so yeah, we've got to turn it all the way down and basically just do tiny little tack welds all the way around. It takes forever and it smells like crap, because no matter how clean you try and get this stuff, there's always some protection wax or there's some seam sealer or something. It always finds itself to a weld, and yeah, it's not particularly nice. So I'm about to mask up and get this welded up. So yeah, I'm going to crack on. I'll do that, and once I've done that, I'm going to fully weld those rails in there on the other side too. Right, catch up in a bit. There we go, that was welded in. Didn't blow as many holes in there as I thought I was going to. I knew I had a bit of a gap here, so a little bit ugly there. Yeah, so that is now done. I'm going to crack on, get those welded in, and then start putting these seat rails in. There we go, passenger side is in. Absolutely perfect. It is quite far back, as you can see. Yeah, when you sit in there, there's absolutely loads of room from where your head is to that bar, because I mean your head is down this sort of level. Yeah, all I've got to do, get the other side in, and there we are, done. No, not quite. So I've just taken the seat out of that side, plonked it in here roughly where I think it needs to go. Obviously it's going to get raised up on seat rails, but my little legs can just about reach these pedals over here. And I've marked on the floor roughly where it wants to go. You can see that I've gone all the way over there. There's a load more room here, which is why I've had to cut that out. So if I look over here, you can see I've gone pretty tight up against that new piece of metal that I have let in there. I needed to get across that far, so I'm kind of in the middle of the steering column, and when the cage comes in here, when I get the door bars, they will pass right by the seat and not through the seat, which is good news. The new rails are basically a fixed position, so although I can go backwards and forwards a little bit on these holes here, I'm kind of fixed left and right, so I kind of want to get that position as accurate as possible. There is a small bit of adjustment in here. The holes are slotted sideways, so yeah, there's probably 15, probably not even that, 10 mil of adjustment, so hardly any. These are the base plates, and this backside here, these captive nuts get welded, and then this plate here gets welded to the shell. I obviously have to drill holes to allow the nuts to sit in the back there, and then the rail itself gets welded to this plate, and then there's the actual bracket that you mount the seat to. That needs to get welded into the rails as well, so there's a fair bit of work to get these rails in. Right, final update of the night, because it is now midnight. These are kind of just mocked in at the moment. These, I have drilled the holes for these in this metal plate and pushed them in, bolted these plates together, and then cut the ends of these to match the angle of that. And then this end, I've just wedged it in tight here. But yeah, it's getting there. Catch up with you guys in a few days. So we're back on the seat rails after a few days off on holiday, and you can see that I've moved these from where I had originally positioned them. So basically this one here was mounted here, and this one was actually where it was. And looking at it and speaking to some people, it looked like they were a little bit too close together. So I've decided to space them out a little bit, and first time I thought, okay, I'll move this rail forwards to get the distance between the two, and then I stuck the seat in kind of position, and it felt a little bit too close to the pedals, so I then had to drill more holes in this new piece of steel, move this one backwards the same amount as I move this one forwards, move this one back, and yeah, that seems to be the correct position now. Annoying because I've got a load of extra holes, so if I just get this off, you can see that I've got these two extra holes here now, and there's one there and one behind here. So I'm going to have to fill this one here. This one, not too much of an issue because I've got a big plate that's getting welded over the top of it, and I can just put some seam sealer in from the back side on that side. So this one I'll probably weld up as I will with this one. So what I'll do now is clean these edges up and weld those plates in place. I need to make these nuts captive on the back. Probably do that with a TIG so it's nice and neat. Go around those so they are fixed in position, and then I can weld this into the shell on that side. And once those are in position, I will mark up on this side, drill holes for the plate here, and then weld it all up. There you go, the rails are finally in. Not done yet though. I have to put the saddles over the top of these, that is this, over the top of these, and I have to drill through and I have to fit these threads, and they go in from the underside essentially all the way through the tube. They'll have to get welded top and bottom, so it's all captive, but there is a lip, which is why that goes on the underside so they don't pull through. And I've already marked, there's a little dimple there, and there is one over here somewhere for the front holes, and I've got to mark those on this rail in the corresponding position, get all of those welded in, get these saddles welded on so it's all level, and that is a job done. Well, it's not quite, I've got to weld these ends in as well, but yeah, that's been a lot of effort to get those in, unlike these ones on this side, which was quite easy and quite quick. These ones are so much more beefy though, and I've looked to see why these are not race legal now. It's because basically this captive nut can pull through this gap in an accident, which obviously you don't want to happen, which is why they have moved to this new type here. Well, there we go. Driver's seat is in, finally. That feels like that was a lot of work actually. Basically just getting the rails in and out, shaving them off, make them the right length, and yeah, I think that would have taken an absolute age if I was TIG welding all of that. I'm glad I could just throw them on there, MIG them up, and get the job done as quickly as possible. I did TIG weld a few things, but generally most of it's been MIG'd, and yeah, I'm really happy with how the seat fits in position here. The wheel feels dead central, the pedals are the right distance away, I can get full movement on these pedals. I am in the mid position at the moment, so I do have scope to go forwards a little and back a little as well. But I think that is pretty much where I want it to be. The height is pretty good as well. I can go down a little bit at the back. Maybe I will do that. Another thing ticked off the list. So there you go, guys. That is how you fit some MSA FIA approved seat rails and some non-FIA approved seat rails as well. Hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you're not already, please subscribe to the channel. If you've got any questions, please drop them down in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.